Hello and welcome to Physics Teacher. In this grade 11 math tutorial, I'm going to show you how to simplify rational expressions and, very importantly, show you how to determine the restrictions on those expressions. All right, we're going to do 3 questions. Let's get started. So factoring is a very important skill for simplifying rational expressions. So one of the first things we should do is look for any common factors. So we can see there's a q in all of these. So for both the numerator and the denominator, I'm going to factor out a q. Plus 49. And then we're going to do the same for the denominator. We can factor out a q, which leaves us with q squared minus 49. Now, I can cancel out these q's, but very important, you can't divide by 0. That means q cannot be 0. So that's our first restriction. Let me write our restrictions up here. So q cannot be 0. Otherwise, we would be dividing by 0. Okay. Now, we can factor some more. Now, this is where knowing your perfect squares and difference of squares can help you a little bit. So if you notice with this first one, this is a perfect square. Okay, so I can reduce that to q minus 7 squared. And on the denominator, we have a difference of squares. So that is q minus 7 times q plus 7. Looking at the denominator, this gives us 2 more restrictions. Okay, q cannot be 7. Because if q were 7, 7 minus 7 gives you 0, and then you're dividing by 0. So q cannot be 7. But also, if we look at this bracket, q could not be negative 7, because negative 7 plus 7 is 0. Once again, you'd be dividing by 0. So q can also not be negative 7. Now, we can simplify this further because these brackets are the same. So let's get rid of this bracket along with one of those. And we are left with q minus 7 divided by q plus 7 with these restrictions. How was that one? Not bad? If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, let's move on to the next example. The next one looks a little bit messy, but we'll clean it up. First off, there's a division here. We're going to change that division into a multiplication. Let me show you how we do that. So for the first one, let's go ahead and actually we can take out a 2. Right? Again, always look for that greatest common factor, or if there's any common factor, look for it, pull it out. So let's pull out a 2. So that leaves us with 5b squared plus 21b plus 18. And in the denominator, all those numbers are even. We can pull out a 2 there as well. And so the 6 will now become a 3. The 2 just becomes a 1, so minus b. And the 60 becomes a 30, so minus 30. There we go. Now we're going to change this division to a multiplication. But to do that, we have to take the reciprocal of that fraction, or just switch it. So the numerator becomes a denominator and vice versa. So we're going to have a 3b squared minus 13b plus 10. And then we're going to divide that by, it looks like we can have a common factor there. We can pull out an 8. So if we pull out an 8, that leaves us with 5b plus 6. All right, now these 2's we can cancel. They don't leave us with any restrictions, so we're just going to cancel those. And then we have a couple, 3 of them, 3 complex trinomials we're going to have to solve. We're going to do it by grouping. There's the trial and error method, but the grouping one never fails. So let's first do 5 times 18. So if we do 5 times 18, these are bigger numbers, so we might need our calculators. That gives us 90. Now we're going to need 2 numbers that multiply to give us 90 and add to give us 21. So you can try a couple. 9 times 10 definitely multiplies to give you 90, but they add to give you 19. So what about 15 and 6? Those are going to work. They multiply to give you 90 and add to give you 21. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace 21b with 15b and 6b. Okay, we haven't changed anything because those add to give us 21. So we're just taking a number and splitting it. And then we still have this 18 on the end. Now let's do the same thing for the denominator. 3 times negative 30 is negative 90. So now we need two numbers that multiply to give us negative 90, but add to give us negative 1. So this is where we can go with our 9 and 10. But one of them needs to be negative. And since our value is negative, here, negative 1, let's use the bigger number as negative. So we'll take negative 10. So we'll have 3b squared. We'll have a positive 9b and a negative 10b. Then we'll leave that negative 30 there. All right, let's do it one more time. So what we have here, so 3 times 10, so 3 times 10 is 30. So we need two numbers that multiply to give us 30, but add to give us negative 13. So I think 10 and 3 work, but they don't add to give us negative 13, so we can use negative 10 and negative 3. Because when you multiply them, two negatives gives you a positive. So we'll have 3b squared minus 3b minus 10b, and then plus 10. And there's nothing we can do with this one for now. So let's just leave that 5b plus 6. All right, so now we're going to factor by grouping. So we're going to essentially take these groups, these two and the other two as well. So what we want to do now is look for the greatest common factor between 5b squared and 15b. So we're going to pull out a 5b. And that leaves us with b plus 3. Same thing with 6 and 18. Let's pull out a 6. So if we pull out a 6, we just get b plus 3. And if you did it right, these two brackets are going to be the same every single time. If they're not, check your work, you did something wrong. So next, let's pull out a 3b. So that's going to leave us with b plus 3. Now these ones didn't have to be the same. That's just a coincidence with the numerator and the denominator. But then we're going to pull out a negative 10. And that's going to give us b plus 3. Why did I pull out a negative 10 and instead of just a 10? Because if I just pulled out plus 10, that would have left a bracket of negative b minus 3, and then the brackets wouldn't be the same. So you pull out that negative as well. Then we multiply. Okay, so that's what we have here. We're going to pull out a 3b, and that leaves us with b minus 1. And over here, we can pull out minus 10, so that leaves us with b minus 1. And then over here, we still have 8 times 5b plus 6. All right. Now we factor them. So we have a common factor of b plus 3. And when we factor it out, we're left with 5b plus 6. Same for the denominator. We got b plus 3. We factor it out, we're left with 3b minus 10. Then we multiply. We have a common b minus 1, and then we're left with 3b minus 10. Then we can divide that by, we still have this 8 times 5b plus 6. Now before you start canceling things out, we have to look at the restrictions. So we've got 3 brackets here on the denominator. Let's look at b plus 3. Very important, this cannot equal 0. So therefore, if we rearrange for b, b cannot equal negative 3. Similarly, we have this other bracket, 3b minus 10. That bracket cannot equal 0. So when we rearrange it, we have that b cannot equal 10 over 3. And finally, we have this 5b plus 6. 5b plus 6, that cannot equal 0 because you cannot divide by 0. So when we rearrange this, we're going to get that b can also not be negative 6 over 5. So 3 restrictions we have here. Now that we have those restrictions, we can start this wonderful process of canceling things out. This feels good. And all we're left with is b minus 1 over 8. Very important. Just like I canceled 3b minus 10 with this 3b minus 10, I could only do that because we were multiplying. If you were adding or subtracting, that would be different. What would you do if you're adding or subtracting? Let's look at our last example. So for our last example, we have a subtraction here. First step, let's see if we can factor any of these. 2b minus 5 can't really do much with, so let's leave that. But then we have a simple trinomial. Okay, simple trinomial is, well, simple. All we have to do is find two numbers that multiply to give us minus 15 and add to give us negative 2. So think about what those two numbers are. You can try 5 and 3. 5 and 3 would multiply to give you 15. One of them would have to be negative. Since we need it to add to negative 2, we're going to have negative 5 and positive 3. So negative 5 and positive 3 multiply to minus 15 and add to negative 2. Okay, and then over here we have 3b. We're going to divide by, okay, simple trinomial. Okay, simple meaning the coefficient in front of b squared is just a 1. Okay, two numbers that multiply to give you minus 30, but add to give you 1. So you can try 10 and 3, but that they won't add to give you 1. What else we got? 6 and 5. 6 and 5 will work. One of them needs to be negative since they multiply to give negative 30. So we'll have b and b. And they need to add to positive 1, so we're going to have plus 6 and negative 5. Now, because we're subtracting, we need a common denominator. So let's look at what the common denominator would be. Now, both terms already have b minus 5, but one term has b plus 3, and one term has b plus 6. So the common denominator would be all these factors. So we have b minus 5. We have b plus 3, and we must also have b plus 6. So essentially what we're going to be doing here, in order to get both of these fractions to have that same denominator, we are going to multiply this fraction by that b plus 3, but I have to do the same on the top. Right? That way that is just equal to 1. When I multiply something by 1, I'm not really changing anything. And for the other fraction, I don't have room here, I'll put it over here. We are missing the b plus 6. So I'm going to do b plus 6. And then I'm going to have to do it on the top as well. b plus 6. So then when we subtract them, we are left with 2b minus 5 times b plus 6, subtract 3b times b plus 3. All with that common denominator. And that leaves us 3 restrictions. b cannot be 5, otherwise this first bracket would be 0. b cannot be negative 3, otherwise the second bracket would be 0. And b cannot be negative 6. Otherwise, the third bracket would be 0. So now we're just going to expand by foiling. So this will give us 2b squared, and then plus 12b, and then with the 5, minus 5b minus 30, and then we'll distribute the 3b as well. Make sure you distribute the negative 3b. So you get negative 3b squared, and then negative 9b. All over all of these brackets in the denominator. Then collect like terms. So we have a 2b squared and a minus 3b squared. So that's minus b squared. And then we have plus 12b minus 5b minus 9b. So that gives us minus 2b. And then just a minus 30. And I don't think that is going to factor, because I can't think of any numbers that will work there. So b minus 5, b plus 3, b plus 6. Now you can pull out a negative if you want to make it a simple trinomial. You can pull out a negative so that you have b squared plus 2b plus 30. Like I was saying, I don't think there's any numbers that multiply to give you 30 and add to give you 2. So that is going to be as simplified as we are going to get with those restrictions. So I hope that video helped. And for a limited time, if you're taking grade 12 physics or you're planning on taking grade 12 physics, I have all of my handouts and course packs available to you for free that you can download in the descriptions. Thanks for watching.